Okay, Hare Krishna. So we are, this is our fourth week of an 8-week course on Vaishnava etiquette. And we are reading from, it'll be page 43 in the manual that we're using, which was not written by me. It was written by some devotees in India some years ago. And so we'll be reading basically through the manual, and I'll be speaking something about whatever realizations and other knowledge I may have on the subject. And if you're watching this through one of our links from YouTube or Facebook, then you can leave comments or questions through like you would on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll respond to the questions at the end of the class. Okay. So this is if you have this manual, it would be on page 43, and we'll start now. The subject is honoring and serving prasadam. A very important part of Vaishnava etiquette. How the prasadam is served and how it is honored are important concerns in the Vaishnava culture. Krishna and spiritual master are very pleased not only when food is properly cooked and offered, but also when the resulting prasadam is graciously served and respectfully honored. So on serving prasadam, ideally, prasadam should be served by initiated Vaishnavas. One should be pure in mind, body, habits, and dress, and perform your duties quietly and efficiently. I mean, the duties of serving prasadam. As much as possible, loud talking and disruptive noises should be avoided. One must ensure that preparations meant to be served hot are actually hot, but not reheated after becoming cold, and that all preparations to be served are either present or will arrive for serving at the proper time. Neither the server nor the serving utensils should ever touch the plates or hands of those who are eating, for this will contaminate the server and the serving utensil. If this happens, one should wash one's hands and the contaminated utensil before continuing to serve the prasadam. So, some points on this first slide here. I'm looking at a PowerPoint presentation of what you'll see in the manual if you have the manual. So consciousness is very important in everything. In Krishna consciousness, the consciousness that we have is very important because we're trying to become Krishna conscious, which is the most pure consciousness. So that's why here it's saying that the prasadam is ideally served by initiated devotees. It's not a low-class activity. It's actually something which is to be done very nicely and by those who are more hopefully higher in consciousness than others who may not be yet initiated into the practice of Krishna consciousness. So it should be pure in mind, body, habits, and dress, and the serving of prasadam should be done quietly and efficiently. And the best way is not always possible, but the best condition is that the atmosphere, the location where the prasadam is being served, should be a nice, quiet place, because uh, our minds are very much affected by the um, by, by what we hear. So if it's a very noisy place, it's hard to be in a nice meditative consciousness for meditating on prasadam and the wonderful qualities of prasadam, which is not different from Krishna. Uh, and the point here is also is that uh, again, ideally, this is the best standard. The prasadam should be, if it was cooked hot, it's offered to Krishna hot, but should be also served to devotees hot. That's the best way. Again, it may not always be possible, but that is the best practice. Srila Prabhupada had written um, some letters early on in the movement how prasadam, you cook it, and you offer the portion that you offer on the deity's plates, and the rest of it that was supposed to be hot could be kept in a warm place, like in the oven or somewhere where it was kept warm until serving time. Um, and of course, warm prasadam, if it's meant to be offered, if it's offered to Krishna warm and it's supposed to be warm, it makes it easier to digest also, and it's tastier too. And then the other point here is about this: when you're serving prasadam, it may seem obvious, but it's something to watch out for. If you're going around and serving prasadam, and devotees are sitting down and you're serving, the spoon or the utensil that's being used for serving cannot touch, especially once the devotees start eating, they cannot touch their hand, which you're using for eating. It cannot touch their plate that they're eating from. And if it does, then the server has to go and wash the utensil and wash their own hands, before they can serve any more prasadam. That's the point here. The prasadam may be gently dropped on a free area of the plate, not on the salt, for example, taking care not to mix salty preparations with sweet preparations. Okay? If we're serving a prasadam away and you have a little pile of salt on the corner of your plate so you can add some, if you're serving the prasadam, don't drop it on top of the salt. Prasadam should not be served directly into the hand of the person eating unless one is serving not a meal but only morsels of mahaprasadam. Except when serving dry sweets or dry items, one should serve prasadam with a spoon, even for salt. So if you're serving prasadam and somebody wants a little extra salt, then use a spoon, or not your hands to serve that salt. And only one's right hand must be used to serve prasadam, and one should not touch anything impure, like one's mouth, feet, hair, or lower body, nor should one yawn, sneeze, or spit. The serving vessel should not touch anyone's feet. So these are important points here. The mouth, the feet, hair, the lower part of the body, we discussed in our previous class last week. These are all considered as, dirty. Even if they're washed, they're dirty. And if you yawn, naturally you open your mouth, you're yawning, some saliva is going to spray out. You practically can't avoid it. Talking too. If you're talking, saliva comes out of the mouth, and wherever you're facing, it's going to get mixed in. Same thing applies when you're cooking for Krishna. If you're standing there and you're cooking and you're facing the preparation and you're talking, then it's for sure, unless you have something over your mouth, some saliva is going to get into what we're cooking for, offering to Krishna, cooking for Krishna and offering, and that is it basically spoils the preparation. Um, then there's a proper order to serve different kind of preparations, because you might have many preparations. So there's a practical order. Water should be served first. And then when Gaudiya Vaishnavas serve prasadam, they begin the main meal with bitter foods such as sukta and spinach. Um, and this is followed by dal and savories like pakoras and fried potatoes and so on. Um, the bitter foods first is because it helps to, you say, stimulate the digestion. Um, you want to you eat first the things which will make your stomach want to digest what you're eating. So bitter foods like sukta, which is I'm not saying I always thought it was spinach, but it's sukta and spinach. So it's a bitter preparation, or bitter melon, korala. That's definitely a bitter preparation. Or Srila Prabhupada would with his meals, he would eat first a mixture of lemon juice mixed with ginger, uh, and that definitely will get your digestion going. So these kind of things are to be served first, and then of course eaten first. Um, then comes some other vegetable preparations, sabjis, progressing from the lighter sabjis to the richer sabjis, and from wet to dry. Again, it's all has to do with digestibility. And then, and after everything's been served, then the richer wet sabjis are served again. And these are followed by raitas and chutneys. Raitas are like, they're uncooked. Raitas are uncooked preparations, like cucumber raita is grated up cucumber with some spices and yogurt. And chutneys are, of course, are spicy and usually sweet. As Srila Prabhupada said, that the chutneys are very so spicy that you can't eat them, but so sweet that you can't uh, avoid eating them. Um, and then sweets at the end, progressing from the less sweet to the more sweet. And then rice and chapatis should be offered from the beginning and brought out as needed. Ideally, and this is how Srila Prabhupada personally liked it, because he had his personal servants and personal cooks wherever he traveled. So chapatis ideally should be made, you say, made on order, and you put them, you roll them out, you put them on the flame, let them puff up into a nice ball, and while they're hot, then you serve them like that. That's ideal. Again, in a large group, that may be not practical, but in a other situation where it's just one person or a few people, it is the ideal way. Um, Servings may be small, but when devotees finish an item, one should be alert to replenish the preparation. One should be generous in giving the devotees as much of an item as they desire. One should not be miserly and hold anything back because one wants to take it later. Prasadam is meant for distribution. The devotee should never be left with an empty plate except at the end of the meal. So, um, maybe where we are, usually prasadam is just put on plates and we take like that. But in the beginning of the movement, and in places where there's large numbers of people, large numbers of devotees, then this system is certainly followed. I've been from time to time. I've been in India, where there's these big prasadam pavilions, Vrindavan and Mayapur. I'm sure they have something really big there by now in Mayapur, but in Vrindavan, I remember it. And you sit there, and there's long rows of hundreds of devotees are sitting there waiting for prasadam, and they have someone who's organizing that has put out in Vrindavan. They all had stainless steel plates that you would take when you sat down, and then they would come with their buckets of different kinds of prasadam, go down the line, and just serve one after the other. And the hot preparations, as we were reading, should have been. It was hot. It was cooked just before it was served, and the cold preparations were meant to be cold. And then after they went through the line. Then by the time they finished their line, then some devotees were ready for more of something. So then they would come through a second time. Would you like more of this? Would you like more of that? Like that. The server or the host may describe the wonderful qualities of an item as it is offered. Except as necessary for preaching, one should maintain silence. Hearing a lecture or a cassette is also beneficial. Some devotees can read Krishna book or Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. And because if we're silent when we're eating, then we can meditate on what is prasadam. Prasadam is Krishna. It's another form of Krishna. It's like an incarnation of Krishna in a sense. Just like the Srimad Bhagavatam is considered an incarnation of Krishna, and Bhagavad Gita is also. And so prasadam is another form of Lord Krishna, and that's how we become purified by we say honoring that prasadam. So if we're quiet and in a meditative mood while we're eating, then we can meditate on that fact of the real position of prasadam. And so that we can be, so those who are eating, honoring prasadam, can be quiet. That it is it's also very helpful to be listening. If you can have a good sound system, or you have a situation where you can hear clearly, hearing a lecture from either Srila Prabhupada or some devotee, or reading. Personally, our temple was in Miami Beach many years ago, when we actually had a prasadam room, and we served the prasadam like that. It's basically like we're reading about here. I was reading for the devotees. We would read for the half hour, 45 minutes, devotees were taking prasadam in the morning. We were reading from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and for the and the evening, the prasadam was served again, and at that time we were reading from Krishna book. So during that time, I know we read through the Chaitanya Charitamrita 2 times through, all the way through, reading for the devotees during Prasadam. And the same thing with the Krishna book. We read through it, the entire thing twice, the entire book 2 times. So it's nice meditation. And it also helps to, like Srila Prabhupada says, if we're not talking about Krishna, we have a tendency to talk, which this was in last week's class. We have a tendency to talk, so if we don't talk about Krishna, then we'll talk about Maya or some materialistic thing. So by having someone read and everyone being quiet, then the topic is definitely about Lord Krishna. And then everyone in a group should be offered the same items. When a group of persons take prasadam together, no one should be offered anything that is not offered to everyone else. The group the devotee who is serving prasadam should not make any distinction while serving. If possible, those with special diets should eat separately. Okay, so sometimes somebody can't eat certain items. Somebody can't eat, has a problem with say dairy products, right? So no ghee, no milk, no yogurt, and so on. And what we offer to Krishna has all these things. Then there's a special diet, so that ideally that serving should be a little bit. Maybe those who have those special diets can be separate. But in general, we don't want to create an atmosphere where, oh, okay, I'll give you something nice, and I'll give you a little bit, some extra preparations here, and so on like this. In a group, which might be, how the group is defined can vary, but if in a particular group, when everyone can see what everyone else is eating, the best thing is that everyone is served exactly the same preparations. The prasada may be served from serving buckets. This you see especially in India or in large places where there's a large number of devotees taking prasada. The bucket should not be dragged along the floor, nor should clanging noises be made with the pot handles or utensils. So, especially the buckets would be metal buckets, usually stainless steel, and if you're and they may even be a little heavy if they're full of a gallon or 2 gallons of some prasadam. So the tendency may be you may have the feel inclined to drag it rather than pick it up, but it should not be drugged. First of all, it's on the floor, and second, which is not a clean place, and also it'll be noisy. So try to keep things quiet by lifting the pots, the buckets, and even when serving with the utensils, which will probably be metal, don't be clanking, because then again we don't want to have unnecessary disturbing noises during prasadam time, because our consciousness when we're eating is also affected. Just like it's pretty common knowledge, not just with prasadam, but and I remember they even being taught these kind of things when I was in early in school, and they would say if you're having your meal with your family, don't at that time avoid getting into loud discussions and fights and angry moods and like that, because it will definitely, besides it being disturbing, because it'll actually agitate the mind, it'll affect your digestion, it'll makes it a very unhealthy situation. So same idea here. We try to do what is favorable for remaining healthy by taking nice prasadam, and what is favorable for becoming Krishna conscious by remembering Krishna while we're doing it. After everyone has finished honoring prasadam, the place must be cleaned immediately. Also, devotees can collect the remnants fallen around the plate and put in the dust bin. So, the prasadam area should be cleaned before it's served, which can be a big job if you have a very large prasadam pavilion, and it should be cleaned immediately afterwards. It should be cleaned immediately after the prasadam is served and everyone has moved away, so that it's ready for the next time. Actually, I don't have that many slides here in this section. So, are there any questions? Oh, I see some questions came in too. Do you have any questions, Raghunath and Ron? Yes. Speak louder.
If that plate is a particle new plate, like when you pass the passage, and then they sit in the passage on that plate, that utensil should be touching the plate, right?
A new plate? So the question is, for those who are listening outside, if it's a new plate that we haven't eaten off of before?
Right, like
so,
yeah,
so the question is, if the plate we're eating from is a new plate that no one's has eaten from before, there's a spoon. You have to wash the serving spoon if it touches the plate. Well, what we're just talking about here is that especially if you're eating, you may be eating on a new plate, but because you're eating and you're touching your mouth, you're touching your plate, so then that new plate becomes contaminated. So if you're eating and somebody comes there with a spoon and touches your plate or touches something on it or touches your hand that you're eating with, then that's how it becomes contaminated. It may not be contaminated beforehand, but as soon as you start eating, which is what the subject was, then it'll contaminate the serving utensil if it touches it. So, and of course, in general, who's serving probably won't know that somebody's plate is brand new unless they're eating off of a paper plate, which is, not stained or something. I see. Okay, we have a question here. What do we do with an item of prasadam that is served and you cannot eat it? Well, in general, if we are served some prasadam, if it's something that we, again, the serving in the way we've been talking about here, by the ideal way, you see what's coming. So if you can't eat it, then if you understand ahead of time that you can't eat it, then it shouldn't go on your plate. You just say no, because you're seeing when it's being served to you. If it's already on your plate and it's already mixed with what you're eating, then, well, basically you just throw it out. If you were in India and you had leaf plates, you might go off to the side of the road and the Vrindavan, the pigs and like that, the dogs, they'll come along and they'll eat it. But here, basically we can just throw it out because nobody else is going to take the remnants. Does that answer the question? This is Lila Smriti. Oh, okay. Any other questions? Raghunandan? No. Okay, no more questions on this side. We had a little short section here for tonight's class. Oh, okay. So I answered the question. Yes. Okay, so if there's no other questions, then I guess we'll end a little earlier than usual. And uh, for those who are listening in, we have, I think it's already gone out in the Temple newsletter with the links for this class tonight. We've also sent out a recording of the full class from last week. Last week we had some internet problem, and because of the internet problem, anyone who is watching through the social media missed most everything, and it also disturbed our class here. So I did a whole separate class without anyone, no audience, and I recorded it, and we've included a link to that in the it'll be in the what went out from the Temple newsletter that was announcing this class tonight. Oh, what are the pages for week 4 quiz? Week four covers. Actually, it's actually written there with the quiz in the under week 4. It's week 4 goes from 43 to what, 47, I believe. Yes, 43 to 47 in the manual. From honoring and serving prasadam until after the meal. Yes. And then next week we'll start in the manual, which you can also, if you're signed in online in the school, then the Bhagavad Vedic College, if you're signed in there, then there's also a link to this entire manual. You can see it online. And so in that manual we'll start on page 49. I'm not sure quite to see what page we go to, but it'll start on page 49 for next week, next Wednesday. Okay. No other questions? Yeah.
So we're not completing all of these tonight.
Hmm?
The quiz is on page 47, that's for week 4, right? So we have.
Yeah, we went tonight. The question was, how far we go tonight? We went up to page 47. So we went up tonight. Question here is we started from page 43, and we went to the end of 47.
We did 47?
Yeah.
But I was reading honoring Prasad from the
Hmm?
We were reading honoring Prasad on 45, right?
Well, what we've gone through here tonight, we went up to end of 47.
Oh. The rules for eating and for drinking water.
Unless your manual is different than this one.
Yeah, because I was expecting us to read that, no?
Oh.
We don't have to read it, no?
Hmm?
We don't have to read 46 and 47.
In this manual is, yes. In this manual it goes up to 47. Maybe
No, that's your manual. This manual.
yeah.
Okay.
No.
I will do it.
Oh, okay. We'll work that out. Okay. Any other questions here? C, D, and E. It's
Because you only need for 1.5 hour, right?
C, D, and E. Yeah, in the manual, it goes up. Maybe the pages in yours are gonna maybe the pages print out differently. It should be up to this is ends in 47. It should be number E, which is entitled After the Meal. And
Yeah, after the meal.
after the meal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where it is. Maybe the page numbers are different when in your printing.
Okay. No, but that's yours. I think that's from over here.
Oh, okay.
That's
From here, they're all the same.
yeah, yours.
Okay. 45, 46, and 47 is left to discuss. Oh. Oh, I see. I guess we didn't discuss everything.
Yeah, you discuss first.
I left something off. Um, Sorry.
She doesn't know what's this. We have to move on the plaza.
Okay, I'm very, very sorry, whoever's listening in. Somehow my PowerPoint presentation did not include this. So I'll go on and I'll read. I'll continue reading from the manual. One should be clean during meals, having washed one's hands, feet, and mouth. Also, one's shika should be bound, the head uncovered for men, and bare feet, the feet bare. One should eat in a clean, spacious, peaceful place. If possible, one may avoid eating in a vehicle. During yatras, this is unavoidable. If you're traveling somewhere, then maybe you can't avoid it. One should not eat at the sandhyas. Sandhyas means certain times of the day. Sunrise, noon, and sunset. You should not eat before bathing or before performing Gayatri Japa, chanting the Gayatri mantra, or your morning deity worship. So, like the Gayatri mantra, if for those who have Brahman initiation, those who chant the Gayatri mantra because they have second initiation, we should. There are certain times of day that we should be chanting it. Specifically, sunrise, middle of the day, like noontime, and at sunset. So if prasadam, so the topic here is that if the prasadam is being served at 12 o'clock noon, and we're supposed to be chanting our Gayatri mantra, we should chant before we eat. But the best thing is that the prasadam should be served not exactly at that time, and therefore anyone who is supposed to be chanting their Gayatri mantra at that time, at noontime, should chant at that time. Because Gayatri mantra is unlike the Hare Krishna mantra, which you can chant any time of the day or night. I mean, it's easiest in the morning, but it's not required to chant at specific times. Gayatri mantra should be chanted at certain times. So the chanting of the Gayatri mantra should be done before taking prasadam, rather than not taking prasadam at that time and not being able to chant the Gayatri mantra at that time. That's the point. One may eat with legs crossed but not spread. Keeping the plate in one's lap is not proper. Ayurveda recommends sitting on the floor with an asana to take prasadam with legs crossed to ease digestion. Anyone over 50, when the body does not support, however, may eat while seated at a table. Yes, some of us are in that situation. Before beginning a meal, one should glance over the prasadam and pay one's respects to it, remembering that it is the mercy of the Lord. One should glorify the Lord's prasadam by chanting the prayers. So I think we don't, as a group, chant those prasadam prayers so much now, but when we were serving prasadam and everyone is sitting together and eating, honoring prasadam, then that prasadam prayer was definitely being chanted. Hold on a second. Okay. C, rules for eating and for drinking water. While eating or drinking, do not make disturbing noises. I know we mentioned these things. Or find fault with the taste of prasadam. Use only the 5 fingers of the right hand to touch and place food in the mouth. Eating with the fingers is recommended because the digestive process begins with the sensation of food touching the fingers. But many of us, including me, usually eat using a spoon these days. But at least when I joined the movement, we weren't using spoons. We ate everything with the hands. But I know that Srila Prabhupada would sometimes use a spoon himself, especially if he happened to be with somebody else, a guest, and he's taking prasadam then, and he would, because for those who are not used to the practice, seeing someone just eating with their hands instead of with a spoon will not look good in their eyes. But, so for preaching purposes, we might do it a different way. The left hand should be used only for lifting a water cup, and then only if one can pour the water into the mouth without touching the cup to the lips. And the idea, and again, Srila Prabhupada would do this. Was at least I never was with him while he took prasadam, but I was with him. When I did see him, it was like me giving a lecture, and if he drank some water, he would actually take his glass and pour like that, pour into his mouth. And the principle is there. The principle is that if the mouth is dirty, you touch something to your mouth, it's dirty, and then your hands becomes dirty. And say you're giving Srimad Bhagavatam class, then you touch the Srimad Bhagavatam with your hands that have touched something that's touched your mouth. So the proper way is, if you do drink water, try to pour it without actually touching the mouth. Tear large items such as chapatis and puris with the fingers of the right hand, and then place the small pieces in the mouth. Do not use your left hand or tear chapatis and puris. One should not consume a large item by taking it in one's mouth and tearing it with one's teeth. So the proper way, we have chapatis. So you tear off, you take with one hand, with the right hand, you tear off a piece, chapati. I'm not sure who all was listening to this, but anyone who doesn't know what a chapati is, it's like a flat bread. And you take that chapati and you tear it with your hand. So you have a little piece about this size, and then you can scoop up some vegetable or some rice or a mixture of what's on your plate and eat it like that. It's not like well, it's not like we did in the early days before we knew anything about these practices here. You would actually, we were actually rolling up everything into a chapati and then eating like this, but that is not really good etiquette. It was just, in those days we were all new, at least I was less than a year in the movement, and we're just learning these things as we go along. Now we actually have manuals and classes and like that, so we can know better how it's proper to eat. When the right hand is clean before a meal, one may use it to hold the cup and pour water into the mouth so that the cup does not touch the lips. During a meal, one's right hand touches one's mouth, so no one should take the cup in his left hand and pour the water into one's mouth without touching one's lip. During a meal, one's right hand touches one's mouth, so one should take the cup in one's left hand and pour the water into one's mouth without touching the lips. If the cup cannot pour properly, one may hold it in one's right hand and drink using one's lips. So, that happens. If what you're drinking out of is if what you're drinking out of is you can't actually pour it without it going all over the place, right? Then you may have to actually put it to the lips and drink it. Um, so there are certain kind of vessels that are very good for pouring, but if we have one which is made for actually putting to the lips, maybe it won't work so well uh, without doing that. D. Overeating causes disease. This is another D. Food quantity. Overeating causes disease and decreases one's lifespan. It also stops one's spiritual advancement, generates sin, and makes one an object of criticism. Um, Ideally, one should eat so that half one's stomach is filled with food, 1/4 filled is with water, and the remainder with air. So this is a very good practice. It's very good practice. You don't eat until you can't pack anything more into the stomach, and then because if the stomach is completely full, it's not going to digest properly. You need so you fill up the stomach. Srila Prabhupada said that the stomach is about this big, or like this big, like something like this, and so you fill half with prasadam, and then the other half a little water and there's some air, so there's some room for the things to move around and digest properly. That's the principle here. And E, after the meal, it is appropriate to chant the Prema Dhvani at the end of the meal before rising to leave. Oh, so Prema Dhvani, we chant it always like after artiks. Jai Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahansa, Paravajakacharya, Ashtatara Satashi Shrimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So many verses there in this Prema Dhvani prayers. So best thing, and this can be done very easily if you have a group of devotees eating together, honoring prasadam together, is to chant these prayers at the end of the prasadam. After finishing a meal and while waiting for others to finish, one may chant aloud various shlokas and prayers glorifying the Lord. Out of respect for others who are still eating, all persons in a row should wait for others in the same row to finish before rising. And again, if you're sitting down, there's a practical reason for this. If you're sitting down as on the ground, or you're sitting down on the ground, or on a maybe a slightly raised platform, an asana, and you're taking prasadam, and everyone's there together. It's if some are eating and others are walking back and forth, then it's well, it becomes a disturbance to your eating. There's also a chance of something because that movement, something may fall into your prasadam that you're still eating. It's just proper etiquette we're talking about here. That you, if you have a line of 10 devotees sitting together in that format, and everyone is you try to wait until everyone has finished, if possible, before everyone and then everyone can just get up and leave together. After rising from the meal, one should wash one's hands without delay and then rinse one's mouth at least 3 times. And finally, one may wash one's feet. And of course, it was mentioned earlier that normally when you take prasadam, of course, you're definitely not wearing shoes, and ideally, you're not even wearing socks. So because if you're wearing socks, you're not going to wash your feet. So ideally, you're not wearing shoes in the prasadam area, and you're not wearing socks. And because especially if you're going in there and you're sitting down in that area like that and taking prasadam, then the feet and the hands and the body have to be clean when you go in. Otherwise, it contaminates the area. Do not take rest or perform any strenuous labor directly after a meal. So yes, it's another. It's a practical matter. These are we say Vaisnava etiquette. Some of these things are just practical, just physical precautions that we take. If you've eaten a meal, especially if you've eaten a heavy meal, and you get up and you start working really hard, then it's too much of a strain on the body, especially when we get older. If you once we get older and you do that, then it can actually hurt the heart. You can hurt your health by doing something too strenuous immediately after. I know one time somebody had asked Srila Prabhupada about what about eating. Srila Prabhupada would eat his lunch late in the morning, maybe 11 o'clock or so, or 11:30, and he would rest afterwards. He always rested during the day. He only slept 2 hours at night, but he would rest an hour or so during the day. So why not taking prasadam? Why not resting and getting up and immediately taking prasadam? And he said that it would be too much of a strain on the body. So if you so we should rest afterwards, but it says here it says don't rest directly after a meal. So yes, normally the system is after you eat, you move around a little bit, walk back and forth, pace back and forth for some time before you actually lay down and rest. It helps your digestion to start working. Don't eat a big meal and then just try to lay down and sleep. And definitely, if you do lay down, or when you do lay down, I mean, you should rest. You should rest, but after you've moved around a little bit without non-strenuous activities. When you do lay down, as we were talking last week, you should lie either on your left side, so the digestion is easier. The food is easier to digest because of the way the stomach is inside our body. So if you lay on your left side, then it helps what's in your stomach to move through the process more easily, and if we don't sleep on the stomach because as Srila Prabhupada explains, the the in the body we have the tongue, we have the stomach, and then we have the genital. So by the tongue we desire to eat, the stomach gets full, and then it puts pressure on the genital, and then the mind can get agitated and cause us to want to enjoy material enjoyment that was not favorable for spiritual life. So these are some principles here. And just another paragraph here, and then I'll check questions again. One should maintain a tranquil frame of mind as one did during the meal, by remembering the Lord, chanting his name, and discussing his pastimes. So, the idea is, all during the prasadam time, we are trying to have a very nice consciousness, and we're either not talking or we're hearing some nice Krishna katha. But also afterwards, when it comes time for actually digesting what we've been eating, then you should try to keep in that same consciousness as far as possible, keeping a peaceful mind in Krishna consciousness. Not that we want to just be peaceful during prasadam time and then upset and angry and in a disturbed state of mind afterwards. We should try to maintain that as far as possible. After the meal, the eating area should be thoroughly cleansed with water. Another question here. Is it an offense to share prasadam with another devotee while honoring prasadam? An offense? Yeah, you might want to share the prasadam before you've eaten from it, I imagine. But if you're sitting down with someone and maybe you have some milk sweets on your plate and you don't eat milk sweets, and you're sitting next to someone who loves milk sweets, you could give something away. And giving away prasadam is also one of the 6 methods of loving exchanges with devotees, according to the Nectar of Instruction. Accepting prasadam and receiving prasadam. So that would be my answer to that. You can do that, and of course there's always the special case with the advanced devotees like the spiritual master, and the prasadam may be remnants in that case of the spiritual master's prasadam can be distributed to disciples, and that, as we discussed last week, is usually not normally would be done in front of non-devotees, because it probably wouldn't appreciate that you're taking somebody's food off of somebody's plate that they've eaten from and giving it out. But spiritually, it's a very good thing, taking the prasad, the remnants of the spiritual master's prasadam. If you get that opportunity. Does that answer the question? That's Mother Leela Smriti. So any other questions? Either here or online? If not, then we've been speaking for about an hour. It's 8 o'clock right now. So then, if there's no other questions, then we'll end the class now, and we'll plan that next Wednesday we will go into week 5 of the Vaishnava Etiquette course. Okay. Thank you very much for everyone who's come in, either personally here or online, and hope to see you next week. Hare Krishna.